Actually, the city you're seeing under a rain of missiles in this video is none other than Tel Aviv, the capital of Israel. This happened when Iran launched over 150 ballistic missiles at Israel. At least 7 of those missiles hit Tel Aviv directly, and one of them landed dangerously close to the Israeli Defense Force headquarters, or IDF HQ. Iran called it retaliation in response to Israel's bold Operation Rising Lion. In that operation, the Israeli Air Force specifically targeted Iran's nuclear missile program and took out several top IRGC commanders. On Friday morning, nearly 200 Israeli fighter jets launched what many are calling an unprecedented, and some say unprovoked, attack over Iranian airspace. And this wasn't just about hitting military bases. Israel went directly after Iran's nuclear sites. Not just that, they also hit air defense systems and even Iran's top military leadership. Israel officially named this Operation Rising Lion. Enraged by the strike, Iran responded almost immediately, firing more than 100 drones toward Israel. But as usual, Israel suffered minimal damage. Most drones were intercepted and shot down mid-air. According to Israel, this strike was absolutely necessary because Tehran was moving rapidly toward acquiring nuclear weapons. Although, to be fair, Israel has been saying that for the last 30 years. Now let's rewind to the exact operation that triggered this entire escalation. On Friday morning, something unusual happened. Nearly 200 Israeli fighter jets vanished from radar. Most of those jets entered through Jordanian airspace, while some reportedly flew through Saudi Arabia and the UAE, although later, both countries denied any involvement. But the reality is, by the time Iran figured out where the attack was coming from, it was already too late. Smart bombs like the Spice 250, JDAM, and BLU-109 had already been dropped on Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites. And the biggest target of them all was the Natanz nuclear facility. This is the same site where Iran enriches its uranium. In other words, where nuclear fuel is made. Some reports even claim at least 3 underground centrifuge halls at the site were completely destroyed. But Natanz wasn't the only. Other nuclear sites, like Fordow, Arak, and Isfahan, were also bombed. Israel, for its part, claims it only targeted nuclear-related infrastructure. No civilian casualties, they say. But on the ground, Iranian local reporters tell a very different story. And when Iran's retaliation began, chaos erupted in Tehran. Smoke was rising from nearly every nuclear site, and Iran's elite revolutionary guards were seen rushing to brief Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei face to face. And that was it. Operation Zulfikar II was activated. Iran launched over 150 ballistic missiles toward Israel. These weren't ordinary missiles. These were the same missiles that had, for years, been considered reserved for Israel. Among them, the Shahab-3, with a range of over 2,000 kilometers, and the Khaybar Sheikhan, a missile specifically designed to penetrate Israeli bunkers. The first wave of these missiles rained down on the city of Tel Aviv, and then came the explosions, one after another. At least 7 missiles struck various parts of Tel Aviv. One of them landed dangerously close to the IDF headquarters, and from that moment, Israel faced one of the biggest security breaches in its history, because when Iranian missiles reached Tel Aviv and began striking Israeli command centers, Washington went on high alert. The DEFCON level was raised to 3 inside the Pentagon's war room. Just one question echoed across the walls. Is Israel going to launch nukes? CIA, Mossad, and MI6 all scrambled to find the answer. And then came the inside intel. That shocked the US administration because it revealed that Israel had officially begun discussions on the Sanctions option. That's the plan, where if Israel believes its very existence is under threat, it will activate its nuclear weapons. It's what many call a nuclear suicide pact, one that doesn't just aim to destroy the enemy, but is also prepared to destroy itself in the process. And that's when America decided to take the next step. The U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, already stationed in Bahrain, was ordered to move toward Israel. At the same time, the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier was deployed to the eastern Mediterranean. And then the United States did something that, until now, existed only in theory. In a statement, the White House declared any further escalation from Iran will be treated as an act of war, and the United States will respond with full military capability. The moment that line was released, global markets began to crash. Oil prices shot through the roof, and the United Nations called for an emergency session. The situation had now spiraled so far that even Russia and China were forced to step in, because as soon as the US deployed its carrier to the Israeli coastline and dropped the act of war warning from the White House, high-level meetings began. in Moscow, and in Beijing, Russian President Vladimir Putin just issued a stark warning to the world. Any unilateral military action in the Middle East by NATO powers will be considered a direct threat to Russian interests. Meanwhile, China has deployed 2 of its most advanced warships, the Type 055 destroyers, towards the Persian Gulf. At this point, the global chessboard was in motion. Israel was preparing a direct strike on Natanz and Fordo. Iran had already activated Hezbollah and the Houthi fighters for a full-scale regional war. The United States was now deploying its air force, and Russia and China. They were no longer hiding their position. They were standing firmly behind Iran. One phrase now echoed across global military circles: multi-front war. A war that could erupt on several fronts, all at once. Israel versus Iran, the US versus Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Syria. Russia and China versus the United States and the NATO alliance. And somewhere in the middle, a hesitant, uncertain Europe. In the midst of all this, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, pulled its inspection team out of Natanz. Why? Because intel suggested that Israel's next target could be the Fordo nuclear facility, an underground complex buried deep beneath a mountain. And if that site is hit, it won't just be military damage. It could mean a massive radiation leak, a nuclear incident in the heart of the Middle East. So here's what really happened. The day Israeli missiles struck near Iran's Fordo nuclear facility, there was an eerie silence. No radio signals, no air traffic, no international media coverage. Just one word echoed through the void: containment failure. That same evening, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, issued an emergency statement. There are signs of radiation leakage from the Fordo facility, exact levels unknown. Evacuation advised within a 100-kilometer radius. The world now stood at a crossroads. Option 1, push for an immediate diplomatic resolution. Option 2, let this unfold into a full-scale total war. An emergency session was called at the United Nations Security Council. But what happened there was even more alarming. Russia condemned Israel in strong words. The United States vetoed the resolution, and China walked out halfway through the meeting without even finishing the proposal. In other words, there was no consensus, no unified voice, only division. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey remained completely silent. But then came a leak. A classified intelligence report revealed something chilling. Both Saudi Arabia and Turkey had quietly activated their interceptor missile systems. In plain terms, they were preparing either for a radioactive cloud or a retaliatory strike. And then another headline broke, one that twisted this crisis into something even bigger. North Korea had just launched a ballistic missile test. Its target, not the US, not South Korea, but the waters, dangerously close to Japan. East Asia, it seemed, was now entering the firestorm too. And so, the world asked the only question that mattered. Is this really just a battle between Israel and Iran? Or is this the opening act of NATO versus BRICS, a regional skirmish? Or the first flames of World War III? 12 hours after the Fordo leak was reported, a post went viral on social media. Israel has used a tactical nuke on Iran. Radiation levels off the charts. Tehran next. It was fake, an AI-generated tweet, but the rumors spread like wildfire. Within minutes, some countries shut down their airspace. Others issued emergency alerts. Because in a world on edge, even a fake message can trigger very real consequences. Amid all the rumors, a real emergency suddenly unfolded. American satellite systems picked up a ballistic object launched from Iran, heading straight toward Israel. But there was a twist. It wasn't a missile, it was a weather balloon, accidentally released from a red zone area. At the very same moment, Israel's missile defense system triggered a false positive alert. The system mistook the balloon for an incoming nuclear strike. Within the next 120 seconds, Israel activated its Arrow 3 anti-ballistic missile system. That alert reached US CENTCOM. The signal read, Israel going DEFCON 2, and then NATO command responded. They moved their European bases to triad operational readiness, which meant nuclear submarines, B-2 stealth bombers, and intercontinental ballistic missiles, all prepped to launch. The world was just 60 seconds away from catastrophe. 1 minute, and everything could have vanished. But then, a message came through. Abort. False target. Repeat. False target. Do not engage. Stand down. The signal came from US Cyber Command. Their analysis of satellite logs and decoded traffic confirmed. It wasn't a missile. it was just a weather decoy. Now, the entire world held its breath. Would Israel still retaliate? Would Iran strike back? Or would a third nation, in panic, pull the trigger first? According to the IAEA's early reports, and Iran's own claims, the Fordo nuclear site had suffered a deep penetration strike. Iran alleged that Israel had used a bunker-busting nuclear device. They sealed off the site, claimed radiation exposure, and blocked all international teams from entry. But then came a game-changer. A private satellite company, Orion Eyes, known for climate monitoring and mineral research, released a shocking set of thermal and infrared images. What did those images reveal? Yes, there was an explosion, but there was no radiation signature. There was a spike in ground temperature, but no ionizing radiation patterns. And most critically, the telltale signs of a nuclear detonation, electromagnetic pulse, EMP effects, were completely absent from every nearby communication tower around the Fordo site. Now, serious doubts began to surface. Was the attack even nuclear at all? That's when a journalistic bombshell dropped. Samantha Reeds, a former U.S. intelligence analyst turned independent investigative journalist, published a headline that raised global eyebrows. The Fordo deception, Iran's smartest bluff, or Israel's strategic silence? According to her sources, Iran may have baited the strike. They allegedly marked an abandoned chamber in Fordo and passed it off as an under-construction nuclear reactor, a trap laid out in plain sight. But why? To paint themselves as the victim, to frame Israel as the nuclear aggressor, and to pressure the United States with a silent threat. Stop Israel, or watch World War III unfold. But now, a far more chilling question emerged. Did Israel already know the site wasn't active? Did they deliberately strike a low-value target to send a warning without triggering full-blown annihilation? Or worse, was this all part of a coordinated dance between two adversaries? Because after the Fordo strike, the world held its breath, and for a moment, there was silence. Both the US and the IAEA sighed in relief. No nuclear detonation, no global meltdown. But right then, Iran's alliance network kicked into gear. A new phase had just begun, the proxy war phase. It started in Syria, near Damascus. Iran-backed militias ambushed an Israeli military convoy with American-made Tau-guided missiles. Then came Lebanon. From the north, Hezbollah unleashed a rain of Katyusha rockets on multiple towns across southern Israel. And in the south, Houthi rebels in Yemen launched a suicide drone attack on an Israeli cargo ship in the Red Sea. The message was crystal clear. Iran wasn't striking directly, but its pawns were moving across not one, but three battlefronts. Israel had just issued a chilling statement. This is no longer a limited conflict. This is a coordinated regional escalation, orchestrated by Tehran itself. And that's when the real question emerged. Is this the beginning of an all-out war? Or is Iran playing a different game? One designed to exhaust Israel without ever stepping onto the battlefield itself? But then came another twist. For the first time, Israel crossed deep into Lebanese territory, launching an airstrike just outside Beirut on a suspected Hezbollah command center. Now, into this fiery triangle stepped Qatar's peace brokers, Saudi Arabia's silent observers, and Turkey's newest moves. The Middle East was no longer smoldering. It was ablaze, and every eye turned toward Washington. What would the United States do? Because if America stayed silent, Russia and China might not. As Iran laid out its chessboard of proxy war, the US, Israel, and the UK quietly launched a counterplay, a joint intelligence operation, codenamed Operation Shadow. At the CIA headquarters in Langley, a top-secret meeting was called. Only 3 men were in the room: CIA Director Michael Thompson Mossad, Chief Eli Navis, MI6 Middle East Desk Head Arthur Gaines. Their objective was clear. We can't stop the missiles, but we can collapse the hands that launch them. So what was Shadow Web designed to do? Crush Iran's proxy network from the inside, freeze their funding channels with cyber attacks, use insider agents to spread misinformation, hack the phones of top commanders, and make them doubt their own people. And the most dangerous move of all, turn them against each other. The first strike happened in Syria. A militia commander became convinced his superior was an Israeli spy. The result? An internal firefight on Bir Alu. The second strike hit Yemen, where funds for Houthi rebels were suddenly blocked. Their accounts were frozen under terror financing laws by Interpol. Then came the third, And most shocking, blow. In Lebanon, 2 top Hezbollah commanders were caught plotting to kill each other, and that intel leaked, broadcast across Arab news networks. The atmosphere in the Middle East was changing fast. Iran's own allies began to whisper, what if one of us is working for them? Are our meetings being recorded? Who can we trust? Shadowweb hadn't fired a single bullet, but Iran's proxies were already collapsing. But one crucial fact was kept hidden. Iran had found out, and it had already decided to strike back, silently, unseen, aimed at one of the most secure surveillance facilities on Earth, Unit 8200 headquarters, Israel. Because while Israel and the US were dismantling Iran's proxy web, Tehran had launched its own counter-offensive, and it wasn't ordinary. It was called Ghost in the Mainframe. This wasn't some traditional cyber attack. It was an AI-powered cyber weapon, engineered with help from Russia. Target: Israel's most secretive and most powerful electronic surveillance agency, Unit 8200, often called Israel's NSA. Execution: it started with a simple phishing email sent to a contract-based engineer. The subject line: upcoming salary revision sheet, confidential. The moment he clicked it, a sleeper AI virus activated. Codename: Ahriman Protocol. What happened next shocked even Mossad. Unit 8200's data center went blind for hours. Surveillance drones offline. Border signal jammers disabled. Radar caught in a feedback loop. And most alarming of all, a temporary glitch inside the Iron Dome's software. Israel downplayed it instantly, calling it an internal maintenance glitch. But behind closed doors, the question echoed, how did Iran breach our most secure facility? Did we underestimate them? That entire night, Israeli defense officers had to rely on just maps and red lights. A night later recorded in Mossad's internal report as the night Israel went technically blind. But Iran never publicly claimed the operation, because this wasn't an attack, it was a signal. We can get in quietly, even where you think we can't. Israel learned its lesson, but the response was already being drafted at an entirely new level. After Ghost in the Mainframe, Tel Aviv realized this wasn't just a war of missiles or border skirmishes. This was something more dangerous: perception warfare. They called it Project Leviathan, a classified campaign designed to deliver a psychological shock to Iran so deep they'd begin to fear their own weapons. Phase 1, the disinformation bomb. Across Tehran, nuclear scientists received fake government notices. You are under IAEA watch list. Internal inquiry begins Monday. Some got spoofed phone calls. A voice claiming to be from the IAEA whispered, your lab has been compromised. Evacuate immediately. Phase 2, tech ghosting. Suddenly, computers inside multiple Iranian nuclear labs began shutting down. No virus, no malware. The real cause? An ultra-low frequency radio burst, emitted by a nearby Israeli drone. Phase 3, the message. One clear night over Tehran, a single drone appeared, its LED display flashing just 3 chilling words. You are seen. Panic followed. Social media exploded with rumors. Israel can wipe us out, without warning, without a sound. But Leviathan's true goal? No missiles, no invasions, no direct engagement. Just one thing: to plant fear in the minds of Iran's nuclear scientists and military leadership. One internal Mossad slide said it best: Leviathan isn't a weapon, it's a whisper. And that whisper was powerful enough. Within weeks, 2 of Iran's top nuclear projects were quietly suspended. No public explanation. But internally, Tehran was shaken. But that silence wasn't going to last long, because now, Iran's elite Quds force was preparing to step onto the battle. Face to face, Israel's Project Leviathan rattled Tehran, if only for a moment. But Iran's top commander, Ismail Qani, didn't flinch. He called it a psychological attack and ordered a direct response. This was the work of the Quds force, Iran's most secretive, most aggressive unit, specializing in overseas covert operations. And their mission was clear: hit Israel wherever it thinks it's safe. Phase 1. The Syrian strike. In the dead of night, just outside Damascus, a coordinated drone and rocket assault rained down on the Israeli T4 airbase. Reports say at least 3 Israeli fighter jets were destroyed, 2 army officers killed on site. Phase 2. Hezbollah ignites from Lebanon, from the Bekaa Valley. Over 300 Grad missiles were launched. The target? Israel's northern military communication towers. Within minutes, cities like Haifa and Safed went dark, a total comms blackout. Phase 3. Gaza frontline breach. But this wasn't just about missiles. From the Gaza Strip, special jihad units of Palestinian Islamic Jihad joined Hamas and infiltrated Israeli border towns like Nahal Oz and Sderot. Their objective? Close-range assault. Not long-range warheads, but boots on the ground. Israel began evacuating civilian colonies almost immediately. For the first time in recent history, Israel found itself under attack, not just from the skies, but on 3 fronts. Simultaneously, an Israeli Air Force pilot put it bluntly, "We're not in a war zone. The war zone is now inside us." 3 prongs, 3 fronts, 1 coordinated strike to overwhelm Israel, to confuse it, to drain its stamina. But the real shock, it came after. Iran declared its most powerful missile program, Zulfikar-X, fully operational. And its next target was whispered in war rooms across the globe, Dimona, the highly secretive site where Israel hides its nuclear ambitions. But here's the irony. Iran and Israel weren't always enemies. There was a time, not long ago, when the two were secret allies. Yes, allies. Back in 1948, when Israel was born, most Muslim nations rejected its existence. But one nation took a different path, Iran. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran leaned heavily toward the West. And Israel, it used its periphery doctrine to build secret ties not with Arab neighbors, but with non-Arab Muslim states like Turkey, Ethiopia, and yes, Iran. Together, they formed an alliance, invisible to the world, but powerful from within. Military cooperation, intelligence sharing, strategic alignment. Mossad worked alongside Iran's secret police, SAVAK. Iran supplied oil to Israel. Israel modernized Iran's military and tech. This silent partnership thrived until 1979. The Islamic Revolution erupted. The Shah was overthrown, and Ayatollah Khomeini rose to power. Overnight, Israel became the enemy, a nation Iran now called an illegitimate Zionist regime. The Israeli embassy in Tehran shut down. In its place, the Palestinian mission. Friendship turned into hostility. Yet even then, not all the doors shut completely. Old contacts remained. Back channels stayed alive. Secret communications never truly ended. Then came the Iran-Iraq War of 1980. And the irony? Fearing Saddam Hussein, Israel quietly aided Iran, even supplied weapons. But by the 1990s, as Iran's nuclear program emerged from the shadows, the alliance shattered. No friendship, no diplomacy, just open hostility. Today, Iran funds Israel's enemies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. And Israel, it's tightening ties with Gulf states to encircle Iran. That secret alliance, it's now just history, and in its place, a full-scale shadow war. This video opens not in the Middle East, but in a sealed war inside Washington, D.C., behind a dark wall. Military generals, intelligence chiefs, and the president's closest advisors are huddled around a table, every face tense, every eye focused, because just moments ago, a classified report rocked the Pentagon. A missile strike on Dimona has been confirmed. And to Washington, this isn't just an attack. It's a message, a warning, that this fight has left borders far behind and now targets nuclear silos, cyber command centers, national power grids. Around the table sit the defense secretary, the CIA director, the national security advisor, and the president's personal military aides, all asking the same question. Is the next strike aimed at the U.S.? The CIA chief speaks. Sir, just before the launch, Iran's Revolutionary Guard transmitted a coded frequency. Codename Operation Shadow of Quds. That same codename was last seen in 2010 during a deadly strike on a U.S. base in Iraq. Now, it's resurfaced, and it's live. Again, the satellite map on the war room table glows red around Dimona. Thermal zones light up. Smoke rises from the plant's southern sector. One advisor whispers, "Sir, this could be just a test or a massive distraction." But the defense secretary cuts in, calm but stern. If Dimona falls, who's next? Negev Air Base or New York? The situation is now officially critical. The president is presented with 2 options. Option 1, immediately transfer a squadron of B-2 Spirit bombers to Israel. Option 2, deploy U.S. strategic bombing presence directly into the Middle East. Behind closed doors at Langley, CIA analysts deliver a stark warning. Mr. President, we have just 48 hours. If Iranian intelligence is accurate, the next strike will target our cyber infrastructure. And just then, the lights in the Situation Room flicker. A secure line lights up. Sir, we've lost visual feed over the Iraq heavy water plant. Silence falls. The president speaks just one sentence. Initiate Eagle Watch Protocol. In other words, America is now preparing to enter the battlefield itself. Scene shift. Visual of a modern glass building with the UN flag. What you're seeing now is not a war zone. It's the United Nations building in Geneva, where debates usually stay confined to paper and diplomacy rarely breaks a sweat. But this time, it's different. This time, it's not about files. It's about fire. Because just moments ago, the IAEA issued a critical global alert. After a sudden and highly targeted strike on Israel's Dimona nuclear facility, the International Atomic Energy Agency sounded the alarm. Their statement reads, "An attack on nuclear facilities isn't just a threat to one nation, it's a threat to all of humanity." In an emergency press conference, IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi demanded immediate action. "We need access now. We must inspect the Dimona site without delay." But Israel's response, even more defiant. "This is an internal matter. Our own security agencies will conduct the necessary inspections. We will not allow anyone near our nuclear defense infrastructure." Meanwhile, tensions are rising fast at the United Nations. A closed-door emergency session of the Security Council has been called. Russia and China both labeled the Dimona strike an alarming signal for the stability of the entire Middle East, while the U.S. ambassador didn't hold back, pointing directly at Tehran. This wasn't just an attack on Israel. It was an attack on nuclear deterrence, on strategic balance, on the global order itself. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres issued a chilling warning. "We are moving towards the shadows of a third world war, and if restraint is not exercised now, this won't remain just a regional conflict." And now, the questions are more urgent than ever. Will the IAEA get access to Dimona? Will the UN remain trapped in diplomatic statements? Or this time, will another superpower step into active intervention? Because this isn't just about uranium particles anymore. It's about missile targets, scene shift, lightning flashes over a skyline. The city you're seeing now isn't Tel Aviv. It's not Haifa. This is Tehran, the heart of Iran. And that blinding flash in the sky? It's not a storm. It's the Israeli Air Force executing a night operation that history will remember as Operation Silent Hawk. The clock had frozen at 2:43 a.m. when the silence over Tehran's radar was suddenly shattered. F-35 Adir stealth fighters had already crossed into Iranian airspace. No sirens, no warnings, because this time, Israel didn't just launch missiles, they launched a cyber shroud, blinding Iran's entire air defense network before the first strike even landed. The first target, the Parchin military complex on Tehran's outskirts, a site linked to missile fuel processing and nuclear detonation testing. In the very first strike, the southwest section of the site was destroyed. The second target, an underground command center near Evin Prison. According to reports, this facility housed Quds Force Red Teams, nuclear documents, and advanced tactical plans. But this time, the IAF didn't use JDAMs. They deployed mini bunker buster smart bombs. Tehran's night was now ablaze. Iran's Revolutionary Guard scrambled to respond, activating SAM systems. But it was too late. By then, the IAF unit was already flying out of Iranian airspace toward Amman. In one sentence, the IAF came, struck, and vanished without a word. Drone footage hovering over Tehran now shows only one thing: a city blanketed in silence and smoke. And now, what comes next? Will Iran retaliate? Will the IAEA and UN label this a war-provoking act? Or was this just the first knock of the next war? Because Tehran is burning, Dimona is shaken, and from Jordan to Bahrain, every airspace is now on red alert. Yet amid the chaos, there's still one last attempt being made to stop the fire from spreading. The United Nations has called an emergency session. The IAEA has ordered its inspectors to immediately report back from Iran's Fordow and Natanz sites, and the U.S. Secretary of State has spoken bluntly. We do not want war, but if a red line is crossed, our response is ready. On the other side, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, nations that rarely agree on anything, are now united on one front. The Middle East must not become someone else's battlefield. But then comes an unexpected twist. The president of Turkey, speaking from Istanbul, declared, "If regional balance is disturbed, we will not remain silent."
That means this is no longer just an Iran-Israel conflict. This is a challenge to the global order itself. The world now stands at a crossroads. On one path, international pressure, diplomatic negotiations, IAEA reports, backdoor diplomacy, and on the other, IAF war plans, Revolutionary Guards missile brigades, and the very real threat of a multi-front war. So in the end, this won't be decided by statements. It will be decided by the direction of the next missile. Will Haifa be the next target? Will Hezbollah enter through Syria? Or was this strike just a final warning? Will this war stop here or spread like wildfire? The answer is coming soon, and the whole world will be watching.